Hey y'all, and welcome to this week's From the Vault episode from the Magdalen House podcast. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and known affectionately by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we bring you a new release, and our From the Vault episodes, we share podcast releases from our 3 different podcast series, Recover Ed, Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics, and Hope for the Family. Our podcasts aim to connect, inspire, and educate alcoholics, loved ones, and the community to the Magdalen House and the services we offer. We are so glad that you're here. Thanks for listening.
Hello, podcast listeners. My name is Stephanie Crawford, and I'm a recovered alcoholic on staff here at the Magdalen House, as well as the host of this here podcast, Recover Out Loud. And today we are recording one of our series, Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholic Women, and we have on a very special guest. I know I say that every week, but it's always true. Her name is Lauren M., and she actually got sober here, correct? Is that right?
Yes, kind of. Yes.
Well, we'll get into that whenever we talk about it, I'm sure. And she used to work here, and now she's getting ready to move to Houston and just recently got engaged. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's so wild.
And just such an amazing story, and can't wait for you guys to hear it. So anyways, Lauren, if you could just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background, let us know how your drinking was and just what led you in a place to want to get sober.
Definitely. So my name is Lauren M. I have been sober since May 2nd of 2015, and it was brutal. It was ugly. I went through the 2-week program at Maggie's twice, and so I say I kind of sort of got sober at Maggie's only because I didn't stay sober after those 2 visits. But everything I learned here, the foundation of recovery, the foundation of just understanding the illness and the solution and all that good stuff is what I learned here. I guess what I kind of was a part of before it was even a program was the peer recovery program. So that's actually how I got sober. Is I was attending meetings, working with my sponsor, and being as helpful basically as I possibly could up at Maggie's. Like I said before, it actually had a name and some structure and stuff like that. So did I drink alcoholically from the beginning? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I can just say this, that at 21, 22, things started to get worse. And the illness that I didn't know was an illness at the time began to get worse. And for me, you know, what started with was secrecy and lies about when I was drinking. And that's something that I kind of wish was in the book. There's not that's not a qualifier. Like, if you've been secretive or lied about your drinking, you might be an alcoholic. But I kind of feel like it should be, because I think what that is all a part of is the internal demoralization. It's like, you know, you're not supposed to be doing it, but you have to. And people that aren't alcoholic don't understand that. You know, what do you mean you have to be drinking at 2 p.m. on a Friday? And it's like, well, you have this overpowering desire, aka this mental obsession, to do it. So I can look back and see that for sure, that, you know, I would start drinking earlier than intended to. I would certainly be drinking more than I intended to. And I started isolating, at least for sure emotionally, from my friends and family. I might have physically been there, but alcohol was the number one priority of just about everywhere I went. And as you know, that's really exhausting and hard.
So exhausting.
And it's also really scary and really lonely, because you don't want to confide in anybody, because you don't know if anyone else would ever possibly get it. And most people don't until you're lucky enough to get into the rooms and meet some people that share with your same struggle. So it got really, really bad. And I mean, I hate saying this, but it's just the truth. I mean, I was drinking all day, every day at the end. I mean, it's the truth. It doesn't qualify me as an alcoholic. You don't have to drink in the morning to be an alcoholic. You don't have to drink around the clock to be an alcoholic. But that's where it got for me.
Same.
You know, there's the part in the book that's alcohol was my master. And I can't agree with anything more. I mean, it consumed every thought and ounce of my being. And I was trapped in the very, very vicious cycle that is alcoholism for so long. And I was a consequences girl, very externally had lots of consequences. And I remember, it's really funny, I remember actually being in treatment in a long-term care facility and confiding in my friends at treatment that I was like, I'm just so mad. Why do all the bad consequences have to happen to me? You know, why do I have to get the DWIs? And why do I have to lose jobs? And why do I have to embarrass my whole family? And they seem to do it a little more discreetly, if you will. But I will tell you this, now looking back, I'm so thankful for that because it got me to my truth sooner, if that makes sense. Whereas I just know the way my mind works as an alcoholic. If I were able to get away with it, I was going to do that as long as I could. And when you are drunk at work at 11 in the morning, you look in the mirror, you know, and you finally surrender and say, I need help. So,
how old were you whenever you had your first drink?
I was not too terribly young, 15 or 16.
And then how old were you whenever you got sober?
26.
Ah, I was 27. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought 26 was like infancy. Do you know what I mean? Like you think at the time you're like, nobody gets sober this young. Right. And then today I was talking, you know, to a mom who has a 16-year-old and she just was beside herself that her daughter was 16 and struggling as bad as she was. Wow. And I told her on the phone, I said, you know, my best friend got sober at 16 and never relapsed. And she said, oh, well, relapse is a part of it. And I said, well, sometimes, but not always.
Right.
So
doesn't have to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you know, I remember whenever I got sober at 27 too, I was like, I'm too young to get sober. And, you know, but the girl that I just interviewed, you know, before you, she's 25 right now and got sober at 22. And so it's just, you know, we kind of talked about like the big book talks about like how it can get worse in women faster. Yeah. And so it just happens way more than I thought it did at the beginning, you know. So were you introduced to, I guess you weren't introduced to the steps because you came to Maggie's twice. Had you worked the steps or tried to work the steps at all before this go around?
Yes, I had worked the steps, and I think my sponsor would still agree today that it was thoroughly and honestly until I was about, I can look back and see, I think it was about 10 months sober, and I started getting dishonest about a relationship I was in. It was kind of one of those that I wasn't proud of and didn't feel like I should be telling a bunch of people about. And just in case you don't already know this, those who are listening, again, if you're having to keep something secret, it's not a good thing.
Right.
So yes, I mean, I've done it all. I've done 110% on, you know, half the steps. So I've done it that way. That doesn't work. I've done 110% on all 12 steps and then stopped doing steps 10, 11, and 12, and that doesn't work. I've also been a big like step 12 person, but with no 10 and 11.
Me too.
And that's brutal. And that's
exhausting.
And then I've also prayed myself to the liquor store, you know,
Same.
Where I'm only in 10 and I'm only in 11. I'm talking to my sponsor and I'm talking to God, but I'm not willing to go out and carry the message when it's inconvenient on Friday night. You know, I just won't do that. I won't pick up the phone call, you know, and inconvenience my family or whatever to help someone else.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too, right? It's whenever it's inconvenient. You know, someone had told me one time that this work is supposed to be intensive and it's supposed to be inconvenient, you know. And so that divine inconvenience is what I've heard. So
this morning I felt myself at about 8:30 getting really, really overwhelmed with, planning a wedding, finding a new job, moving to a new city, finding recovery in a new city, getting married, the list goes on, finances, you know, just everyday basic stuff. And the most inconvenient thing possible for me to do was to talk to this mom whose daughter is struggling right now and is active in her addiction. But it was the best thing I could have ever done. It was the best hour, the most beneficial hour that I could have taken out of my day. And like I said, I had about 8,000 other things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I put all that aside to talk to her.
That's so wonderful. Have you had spurts, I guess, in your sobriety this time around where you haven't been so willing to be inconvenienced?
Yes. Well, I'm kind of one of those that, if I could be fully honest, some people listening to this will laugh. I will do it, but I will grunt about it.
Same.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm like on my way to the meeting, but I'm going to call my sponsor to complain, you know? Or, you know, I've got my fist up, you know, with a protege or whatever, but I'm going to tell my sister, I don't want to do that, you know? I'll tell you, though, the hardest thing in sobriety, I will say for me thus far, has been COVID.
Yeah.
There's no greater punishment to someone like me who's pretty social and outgoing than to be locked in my apartment alone, and to not have, like, my fellowship, and to not be able to carry the message, to not be able to come up here to Maggie's, to not be able to hug other alcoholics, you know, look other people eyeball to eyeball. That, for me, was a challenge in that I was really fighting the whole virtual system that a lot of people love, you know. I'm just not one of them, which is why I was really glad that you were like, oh, hey, we have podcast equipment. Do you want to do it in person? I'm like, yes.
I know. I'm so excited to be able to do these things in person. They're more fun in person. I mean,
bet.
You're only my third one, but it really is. So, well, you know, you talked about going out and carrying the message and stuff, and I'm literally the exact same way. And I called my sponsor because I do a lot of podcasts, and it was after a day that, like, I interviewed these two women, and they're the sweetest, most loving creatures, and they were like, I just crave going to help a new woman. I just crave it. And I called my sponsor. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Because I am not craving that. You know, like, I'm always glad when I do it. I love my sponsees. I love carrying the message, you know, but it's like going to the gym for me. Like, I'm just selfish and I'm lazy and I don't want to be inconvenienced, and I'm always glad that I did, but like I was like, I'm not like, oh, I can't wait. Like, and you know, we talked about it and she was like, there's nothing wrong with you. But
I would say you and I are in the same boat.
Yeah. I was like, when did I lose that? You know, but again, I feel like I must say it's always the promises always come true, right? And you're always so happy that you did, and you're always so happy when you answer the phone. It's just, I don't know, my selfishness.
But I'm kind of that way in life in general.
Same.
For what it's worth. I'm kind of like, oh, I don't want to go to work. But when I get there, it's great and it's fine and all that. Or something as simple as like, oh, I don't want to go to family dinner. You know, I mean, I'm kind of just like that in general. So, but I do know what you're talking about, and I've heard there are some people that, you know, I mean, that's kind of, there's stuff you'll hear in the rooms, right, that are like, oh, well, I never think about alcohol. Well, I'm not one of those people. I mean, you know, so that's why it's really good and awesome what we do here at Maggie's, which is just drive back to the textbook. Like, what does the text say? Because we're women, we're all going to have different, like, feelings and emotions, and at least I am, and they vary all throughout the day.
And I think it's good too to like be able to do things like this and hear different perspectives, right? Because there might be somebody being like, well, I have thought about alcohol. Does that mean that this isn't working? Does that mean there's something wrong with me? You know, and to hear like that you're not one of those people, that you have thought about alcohol. And on that note, I think that would be something great to talk about.
How I think about alcohol?
Well, no, but just like, you know, the position of neutrality, the freedom that you found, but then like, you know, what does reacting like a hot flame, and like what have you done when the thoughts of drinking come up? What did it look like for you, and how did you get there, and all of that?
Well, I'll tell you this too. I think it's been pointed out to me, because I didn't know any different, that I'm around alcohol a lot more than some. So I'm going to start by saying, don't compare yourself to others, because everybody has different families, and, you know, some people marry people that are sober, and some people like me are not. I'm not going to marry. He's not sober. He doesn't need to be sober. But I always try to differentiate. There's a difference between thought and obsession.
Yes.
Period. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can say. A thought is fleeting. A thought is, ooh, it's a really cold January day and an old-fashioned by the fire would be nice. ... However, I don't want to be in Lou Sterrett tonight and then Baylor Hospital tomorrow. And we all know that Lauren McElroy never just has one old-fashioned. Obsession is my inability to differentiate the true from the false. And it's where I get into this state of delusion, again, where it's and it can be very hazy, obsession. But as obsession is like, I can think of like a shark, like circling, you see in those movies, like circling around its prey and it can't leave it alone until it eats. That's kind of what alcoholic obsession for me is like. It doesn't leave. Oftentimes I'll have a thought about alcohol and it's quickly replaced with, well, this is a perfect time to call my protege back, or, it's been a few days since I've checked in with my sponsor, or maybe I should call my best friend who's sober, or, just something like that. Or the questions I ask, like, how many times have I really prayed today, And so that's really cool that's, to me, is what recovered
sanity
looks and feels like. Yeah.
Yeah, like being restored to sanity.
And it's neat because in this weird way that I can't describe, I'm not doing that. Does that make sense? So there's no like, I almost feel like when I was in obsession, there was like, it's not I almost feel like, it was just this huge struggle, like a huge like physical and emotional like battle, if you will.
Well, what I just heard recently is that the word obsession, and Kelly, our volunteer coordinator, looked it up when I said this in a meeting, but the word obsession, when this book was written, meant possessed.
That's what I always say.
Really?
They stole my material.
No, I stole it because I say it. But no, because I heard it. I heard it in a meeting, and it was from somebody that I really trust what they said, so I just took it as value. And then when I shared that, and I share it when I do meetings up here at Maggie's, but Kelly sits at the desk, and so she heard that, and so she Googled it, and she was like, oh, that's right. And so I was like, okay, now I can say that with confidence, but that's exactly what it is, right? It's like really that possession. And then, when I heard you talking about like, oh, well, how many times have I prayed today? Like, how do I need to call my sponsor? Like, it's not that what I thought the thought of alcohol was going to be like when I got here was like, oh my gosh, how am I not going to drink? I need to avoid, this people, places, and things, and I need to play the tape through and blah, 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 blah. It's just like the way that you described it is just very simple. Like, okay. And not a struggle, and not this, holding on, white knuckling it, holding on to the seat of your pants kind of thing, and just very, very different than what I thought it was going to look like whenever I got sober, for sure.
Yeah, it's like the thought doesn't weigh much.
Right.
Or it doesn't have much weight. It's just I'm trying to think of another example of the thought that I have that's, I don't know, oh, today would be a great day, I don't know, to go skiing. Or if only I lived in California where the weather was good all year round. Just a very kind of silly, unimportant thought, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, my parents, I think I actually stole possessed from my parents, because that's what they would say when they saw me. They were like, she is possessed. And when she is dry and she is sober and she wants to drink, her whole insides and her outsides change, and she literally becomes possessed. And then that continues as I'm drinking, because I can't stop because of the allergy, phenomenon of craving, all of that. And then I'm really crazy, because if anybody drinks as much as I'm drinking, you're going to look and act like a psychopath.
Same. I kind of laughed about it whenever I was doing a meeting with the girls the other day, because we were talking about something, I don't know, like having peace of mind or something. And I was like, yeah, not me when I'm drinking. I'm actually pretty psychotic. That was Definitely me for sure. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and it's going to be something that you probably don't even remember that you told me or that it held much weight for me, but it did. You know, you are so disciplined with carrying the message, and you are a great mentor for our shadow program with our Next Step participants. So just a plug in for our Next Step program. We do have this amazing mentor shadow program where we hook up our participants with wonderful women like Lauren, and they get to help them learn how to carry the message and kind of take them under their wing. But I was talking to you about this, and and I'm going to kind of phrase it in this question, but like carrying the message for as long as you have, and carrying the message primarily focuses on 1, 2, and 3, and doing that every week. Does it get redundant for you? Does it get boring for you? And you told this story about talking to, I don't want to tell a story, but about what he said to you, what Mike Mitchell said to you whenever you asked him if you should like change it up. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm kind of forgetting the story. Keep going.
Okay, so he was like, he said, no, Lauren, it's perfect. It's boring for you because you say it every time. Do you know what I'm talking about now?
Well, so my ego's involved when I want to change it up. Right? And it's for my own personal gain that I want to entertain myself and not talk about the same stuff.
That's so true.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But what I have to remember is, I'm talking to people that have a mental obsession just like I did. And when you have a mental obsession and you're trying to understand something with your mind, repetition is key. I mean, the stuff that my sponsor says to me over and over and over again, it never gets old because I need it. I need that stability, that consistency, all of that. Yes, it's only boring to me because I, maybe talk to 3 or 4 people about this and give them the same examples and the same stories, each and every day. I believe that the stuff I went through in those darkest times were used entirely or were supposed to be used entirely for good. And so, yeah, I hear it. I talk about it. But it's fresh material for them, if that makes sense, for those listening. Mm-hmm. And again, I think the biggest factor there for me is that my ego wants me to be cool and different until, so I did the noon meeting, before I had to move to Houston and tell y'all that I couldn't do it anymore. But I remember, I'd sit there and I'd go, okay, I wonder what they talked about at 10 o'clock. And I hope that I can be better than 10 o'clock. And how can I be better than 2:30? And it's not about that. I'm just a vessel, right? I'm God's vessel. God needs to speak through me. It's just like today. I got all excited and nervous about coming. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get on my knees. And, do I have any idea what stuff he's going to ask me? Probably not. Do I have any idea what I'm going to say? Absolutely not. But I think that's all for the better. You know what I mean? If I'm out of it, it's one of the best things I learned in the beginning is that these steps are in place to get Lauren out of the way. Mm-hmm. And that's so confusing, and it still kind of hurts my head when I think about it. Like, what does that mean? What do you mean? If I can just be almost like a skeleton of myself and my higher power, God, can fill me up and do the work for me, that's all to the good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. On that note with ego and selfishness, I want to ask you about how the divorcing yourself of self-pity and all of that. So can you read that line and talk about what that looks like for you and what that means?
Yes. So in the 11th step, which is prayer and meditation, and improving my conscious contact with God, it talks, on awakening, I'm on page 86. It says, on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead, which I love because it's telling me just to focus on today. But then it's telling me the very first thing that I ask God to do for me today, as soon as I come to in the morning, is divorce myself from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. And by the way, self-pity and dishonesty and self-seeking motives is all a form of selfishness, but removing that self-pity first. If I'm feeling sorry for me, which I will tell you, a lot of days I wake up thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to work. and I'm too tired, and I was up late last night talking to a protege or finishing a work assignment or whatever. If I'm in self-pity and I'm thinking about me, how can I possibly be helpful? And how can I glorify my higher power or do anything good for anybody else if I'm feeling sorry for myself? But it's not in my nature. I will just be brutally honest, per usual. It's not in my nature to just wake up and like blissfully jump out of bed. Mm-hmm. My sponsor, when I first got sober, told me, Lauren, when you wake up and your head is on your pillow, I want you to thank God that you're sober and that you're not in jail. Mm. And I was like, well, that seems like a pretty simple, kind of silly prayer. But it meant so much to me in the beginning because it was so actually real for me. The fact that I was sober and in a bed as opposed to a floor or a jail cell or an alley or a car or a treatment center, that was such a miracle. And I still say that silly little prayer that she told me to say every single morning. Before my eyes even open, it's thank you, God, that I'm sober, and thank you, God, that I'm in this bed. And so it's simple things like that that get me out of self-pity and into the place of gratitude. And the truth is that it's funny how, like, do you ever do this where you kind of fight with yourself? You know you're better off when you're in gratitude, mm-hmm. but being in self-pity feels good because mm-hmm. you feel so justified or whatever. And it's just, and then when I let it go, kind of like today, when I got out of myself and was helpful to this mom, it's like a way better world. Mm-hmm. A way, and so many, yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, I just had a recent experience, actually, where I was kind of feeling self-pity about something, I forget, and my boyfriend was like, well, he said something like, well, God's got you, or God, and I was like, will you shut up?
Yeah.
I'm being justified in myself right now. Just stop talking to me. I'll call my sponsor. But yeah, because in that moment, right, like I just wanted to wallow. Right.
It feels good for a second.
And then, but it's like quicksand,
Yes,
for
me. A few hours. And that's why I'm just so thankful for literally like the spiritual tools that get me out of this. Because by the way, everything that I'm saying, I haven't referenced the book too terribly much. Everything that I'm saying is literally directly out of the book. It's just I'm saying it in my own language and translation, mm-hmm. just for those listening. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did this podcast recently. I was just sharing like my story, and it wasn't like it wasn't a recovery podcast. It was like a podcast about like life things, and so like I was interviewed based on like my story, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so he was asking me about some things, and literally all the stuff I was saying was just like the solution that the big book gave me, and like how like it helped me and transformed my life, and how it helps me today. And he was like, if only the whole world thought like you. And I was like, well, one, none of these thoughts are original. They come from the big book. And two, like not everybody's put in a place where they're going to die if they don't, mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, what a gift that we like have to.
Yes. And it becomes ingrained in you, mm-hmm. Because of the consistency of the program and the daily nature. And that's what's cool. Our life circumstances and our externals change. People come and go, jobs come and go, friends, some trials, all the things, right? You have your ups and downs in life. But what I love is that I can always rely on the spiritual tools, mm-hmm. on this program to get me back to God. That's going to do all the hard stuff for me, that I can't do on my own.
Mm-hmm. So you are recently engaged.
Yes.
And so you have experience dating, sober, and now you're engaged, and just, you put out this you wrote this like amazing article or story or something. I don't know what it was, but I read it. And maybe we can find it and put the link in the show notes or something. But, you know, you talked about meeting this guy and being afraid to tell him that you're an alcoholic and all of that. So do you just mind like,
I was so scared.
telling us?
We were laughing about it yesterday because I think for the first 3 dates, well, to be honest, it's gonna make me cry. I always thought alcoholism was the worst thing that ever happened to me, you know? And while I'm living proof that it's the best thing that ever happened to me, to shed the years of the guilt and the shame associated with everything that I did and with a label that I know shouldn't even be a label, it was my own stuff, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't believe that someone else, I've had a hard enough time accepting me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't believe that basically a stranger could look across from me, you know, having, you know, a cup of coffee and fully love me and embrace me for everything who I was. Because also, he doesn't have this disease. He doesn't have this illness. And I think for him to have an understanding and compassion, even as someone that hasn't struggled with what I've struggled with, it was so refreshing and so surreal. Mm-hmm. But it's totally scary, by the way, to tell people you're going on first dates with when you're in your 20s, 30s, or actually, I don't care what age you are. Age is beyond, you know, that's irrelevant. It's scary to put that out there in the first place, because you don't know what their knowledge and background mm-hmm. is on it. You know, do they have a family member that has addiction, alcoholism or addiction? Have they ever personally struggled? Or in the case of my fiance, he didn't know anybody
really
that was sober, really. He didn't have anyone close to him in his life that had ever struggled. So this was a whole new world and a whole new language. And so then I'm like, wait, is it my job to teach him this? And then, you know, you go through that mental struggle.
Did you teach him?
I have taught him some. I think, this is just my personal opinion, that he's better off to learn from others. So what I did was I brought him to a meeting with me on Tuesday night, and I let him meet some of my friends. Oh. And I let him attend the meeting with me because, and he's even said this, he can hear it from me, but it's better for him to hear it from somebody else as far as, you know, alcoholism. I also showed him, I think we've been dating about 6 months. I showed him the Other Side video that's on Maggie's website. I happened to be in it, and that was a big like turning point for us in our relationship, because it was, while it certainly wasn't a secret or something that I keep private by any means, it was something like really sacred to me, mm-hmm. because not only is Maggie so special and important to me, the people in the video are so important. And I think it just gives such a good depiction and illustration of the struggle of alcoholism, mm-hmm. the tools that a lot of us have received to recover. So I showed him that video.
And how awesome, though, that he, like, wanted to, like, do these things. I mean,
I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I had some internal issues that I've truly had to just work through and ask God to help me with, because I just couldn't believe that someone would take me warts and all.
And want to know more about your story. And,
yes.
You know, and like want to give up his time to come to a meeting with you to just better understand you more. I mean, I think that is so beautiful.
It's such a miracle. And then the funny thing is, I just have to say for those listening, y'all, I watch him drink and I'm like, my jaw's on the floor. I'm like, what is going on? Why are you drinking so slow? Are you sure you don't want more? I mean, y'all, I'm so perplexed. My family is full of a bunch of hard drinkers. Sorry, family members who will listen to this. And Ryan's really not. He's not, I would say he's a moderate drinker. And I'm not around that very often. And so someone that can take it or leave it was just like really, really wild. I remember he had asked me, we walked the dogs, and he said, let's go get a drink. And so, of course, in my mind, I think that means an alcoholic drink, you know.
Oh, that's exactly what I just thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we went to a coffee shop, and this coffee shop happened to have wine and beer. And it was like 8 p.m. in the evening. It was in the summer, so the sun was about to set and whatever. And I was 110% certain that he was going to get a beer or wine because I just can't imagine anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know I was an alcoholic. He didn't know I was sober.
Oh, wow.
So I was, like I said, 110% certain. I was like, oh, he's going to get a beer. And then I'm going to have to awkwardly tell him, I'm not going to, whatever. He got a coffee. I was like, what? This is
That's
bizarre.
So weird.
And so I think I ended up telling him, that night anyway, and just getting it out there.
So whenever I was dating recently, and I would go on dates with normies and whatnot, it would be like one thing to be like, yeah, I don't drink, I'm a recovered alcoholic, but then it would be like, okay, so then how do I like also be like, okay, but it's not just that I don't drink and I'm a recovered alcoholic, like I have to work this 12-step program and like go to these meetings and work with these women, or I'm gonna die. So like, how did you incorporate that into it?
Well, and the other thing is, on the other side of what you're saying too, I have this weird thing where I don't want people to think that I judge them for drinking or that I'm a goody-goody.
Same.
And I'm a religious person, but I'm not sober because of religious reasons.
Right.
Sorry, God. So this is where it really is a practice of pausing, which for me is praying and inviting God in. God, you give me the words to say, because if I'm trying to control and manage what's coming out of my mouth so that it sounds good, attractive, and appealing to this handsome guy that's sitting across from me, I will screw this up. That's another area of my life where it's like, God, I desperately need you to give me the words to explain this. But I will tell you, it's something I worried about. We also started dating in COVID. So I was not going to meetings and I was not going to commitments. And so what I did was I expressed to him just one night, I just said, I want you to know when the world opens back up, I'm quite a bit more busy on weekdays. And my evenings look a little different, and I'm not quite so available to just like take the dogs to the park or go have dinner or go on a walk or whatever. And so a lot of that was just trust and faith. I'd be lying if I didn't say I had to tense up about it a lot and just my own self-centered fear. But again, I think too, and take this or leave this, it's, I always surround him at least. We can express alcoholic to alcoholic, like, yeah, I don't want to go to the meeting tonight. Mm-hmm. It's inconvenient, da-da-da-da. Yeah. But I think to someone who's not an alcoholic, it's just better to focus on the positive, not in a way that you're being insincere or lying to them. But the last thing you want to do is be complaining about, a protege. It's one thing to vent, a recovered alcoholic to recovered alcoholic or whatever. But for someone who already is going to have a hard enough time understanding the disease, and then you're kind of dogging on the solution, that's not good. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Because we know obviously too that like we love the solution. It's just coming from a place of like you said, like, oh, I don't want to go to work, but I'm so happy I did. Exactly. But like whenever I did date a normie, he would be like, "You're going to one of those things again?" I remember he asked me, he was like, "Do you get paid?" I was like, not in the way that you think, but in like spiritual, way, yes. And I had to remind myself too that everything Ryan asked me were the exact same concerns and questions that my family had. And so that made me take it less personally, if that makes sense, because I know that nobody loves me and cares for me more than my family. And so when he was asking similar questions about like, should you get paid for this, or should you start a business or whatever, it was good for me to reference back and say, my dad used to say the same thing. And it's just out of, what does the book say? Ignorance and misunderstanding. It's not out of a personal attack or a hatred for the program, or there's nothing negative about it. It's just a genuine curiosity and misunderstanding, if that makes sense.
Are you or someone you love struggling with the inability to stop drinking? At the Magdalen House, we believe that education about alcoholism and recovery is crucial to helping more alcoholic women and their families recover. Our staff is available to provide speakers to the public who will discuss the disease of alcoholism, how to help someone who may be struggling, and more available resources. To request a speaker, please visit our website at magdalenhouse.org/education.
On that note as well, one of the things that like I want to do is I want to interview a recovered alcoholic and like do something about like what Hollywood gets wrong about AA.
Yeah.
And so
Which is a lot.
A lot. Yeah. So just on that note, just to clear up in case there is anybody who's, I mean, even an alcoholic could be listening, but they have no idea that there's like this actual like peace and freedom and all that stuff, because all they see is like the Hollywood version, and that looks miserable. I don't blame people who wouldn't want to be a part of that. But do you want to just like maybe like share a couple of your pet peeves that maybe you see that's just not accurate
About the fellowship?
about what Hollywood's depiction of like
sobriety,
yeah,
and all of that? God, that's a really good question. Well, it's certainly not yoga and massages and self-care. That is in addition to and after the fact, if I'm lucky to have enough money left over for my paycheck, right? But first things first, it's work. This is from the book, work and self-sacrifice for others.
which is contradictory to this is a selfish program.
Exactly, which is contradictory to massages and manicures.
Yes.
Got a manicure today. Great. Awesome. But that's after I'm actively in steps 10, 11, and 12. So I think, I really see the biggest problem, and I don't know if this is in Hollywood or everywhere, is just that people don't understand that it's a disease.
Right.
People, when I say body and mind to people on the phone that are calling me with a struggling loved one, or they themselves are struggling, and they're like, huh? And then I'm like, do you have a big book? And they're like, huh? And that bothers me, because first of all, you're not going to do the 12 steps unless you truly understand what powerlessness means, what the mental obsession is, what the physical allergy is, and what complete ego deflation is. I mean, I just know from experience, there's no way you're going to work the 12 steps. And then your book is literally your solution, your plug, your connection, whatever you want to call it, to God, that's going to save your life. I mean, so the book is your roadmap and in your way out. Mm-hmm. So coming to a meeting, in a Hollywood meeting, and you see this on the movies, and they sit in a circle and they don't have a book. The disease is not discussed. The spiritual solution is not discussed. Amends, an inventory, prayer and meditation, 7-step prayer. None of that's discussed. That bothers me, because it's not, I don't know, it's not what. And also, this is what I don't like about Hollywood. Now you've got me on a roll. They're so depressing in those meetings. I know. What show am I watching on Hulu that Ainsley told me about? Dope Sick. Is that what it's called?
I think so. She talks about that show a lot.
Ainsley. She's my TV buddy. But anyway, there's a show among many shows, right? And they're sad and they're depressed, and then they're in a circle and they're holding on for dear life, and they're supporting each other. Here's the deal, y'all. It's a God help program, not a human help program. It's not a meeting help program. I'm not saying that people in meetings don't help.
Right.
Lead you to a bigger solution. And if you're not leaving a meeting on cloud 9 and high as a kite, I'll go ahead and say this, or being recorded, I think there's something wrong with the meeting. I mean, I left Tuesday night for my home group elated.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, back to my now fiance. He was all weirded out. He was like, what on earth are you doing on Tuesday nights? Because you are the happiest I've ever seen you. And you're talking to all these people, and you go early and you stay late. And why? I mean, he was like, what in the world? So again, I think for me, at least, recovery is my greatest joy. And Hollywood does not depict that.
No.
Hollywood depicts it as a dark struggle, because that's where the drama is, right?
Yeah. It's funny too, whenever I'll celebrate, a milestone or something, and I've had people be like, keep fighting the great fight. Like and it's just like, oh, don't say that. Like it's, like I understand, like, again, it's that like ignorance and misunderstanding, right? But it's like, that's not what I want to portray to somebody out there who's suffering, right? That you don't have to live life fighting every single day.
I wouldn't be doing it.
No.
I'm here to tell you. And then the book say something like, as we trudge the road to happy destiny. Well, that's trudge I thought meant negative. And I don't know, maybe I should look on my phone and see. But trudge has a different definition than what I thought. Well, it just says walk slowly and with heavy steps.
Well, I know Lisa said that, like, I guess the big book definition of that is like walk with purpose.
Yes, that's right. That's what there's a big book dictionary that I gave to a protege a long time ago and never saw again, her or the book. But yes, there was a definition. Some of what's written in the big book is hard to read into today's terms because the words meant something different back then than they do now. And so that big book dictionary that you're talking about and that Lisa's talking about really helps give context to the time period. Mm. And I think that's what everybody wants in life is purpose, for what it's worth.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you can ask anybody, what will make you happy in life? What's most important to you? I feel like across the board, almost 100%, you're going to get purpose.
Oh, yeah. I hear it all the time in the podcasts that I listen to now, like the spiritual podcasts and the self-improvement podcast. It's all
Oprah.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's all like
Brene Brown. It's
purpose. That's what everybody's looking for. And I always think, like, how lucky am I? I don't have to, like, I don't have to look for that, right? There's so many people out there who are looking for that, and we don't have to.
It's funny. My sister and I have had the most strained relationship from my alcoholism. And, like, when I say, like, wouldn't talk to me for 2 years, couldn't be at a dinner table, couldn't be at holidays, like, disaster war zone, awful. And she looked at me recently, and it kind of makes me emotional because she just said, I am so jealous of you. And I was like, what? Why? She was like, well, I'm jealous that you're sober. And I was like, expand on that. And she was like, well, you have purpose and meaning, I
just want to cry.
I know. And she was like, and I don't, aside from a job. And, my mom said that to me too. I'll never forget. My mom picked me up at Maggie's after I stayed there for 2 weeks. Redwood Circle was that beautiful circular drive in the front. And a woman named Rose, who will not care that I said her name, came running out and she said, Miss McElroy, your daughter saved my life. And my mom's like, what? What are you talking about? And she said, she brought me in when I got here and got me Gatorade and helped me, lay down and got me a cigarette and, kept me here. And first of all, that wasn't my doing. It was just right place, right time, God's doing for sure. And my mom, we drove off and I remember saying, Lauren, all I get to do is, design houses for a living. She's like, and it's fun and it's glamorous and it's pretty, but it's none of what we just experienced. So it's a cool deal, to say the very least.
Well, so, on that note with your family, because you were in your sister's wedding, right?
I was.
Yeah.
I was their maid of honor.
Oh, that's so wonderful for somebody who wouldn't talk to you for
I know.
2 years.
And I planned the bachelorette, which I was sober, of course, at the entire time. Sorry, I interrupted. What were you saying?
No. But I think that's appealing too, because the bachelorette party, there was a lot of people who were not sober, correct?
There was one other bridesmaid that was pregnant. But what's funny? Even she had a glass of wine or two. So we ended up laughing. I was like, just when I thought I was going to have a sober companion, even the pregnant girl can have a few drinks.
Oh, wow. Well, so going from somebody who wouldn't speak to you for 2 years, and your dad is in the Other Side video as well, how has your relationships with your family evolved? And, do you have like an amends with your father or your mom or your sister that you want to share about or anything like that?
So there were the initial amends that I had with my family that was like a given, right? That they had, kind of grown to expect, right? At first it was the apology tour. Then I learned through the big book and through my sponsor and the directions of the 9th step that I no longer, it's not an apology tour, right? I right the wrong. So I made those initial amends, but I'll tell you what I think has been really cool is making amends in sobriety a few years later. So my sister told me when I made my first amends with her this go round in sobriety, just don't lie to me. But here's the deal, y'all. I'm not perfect. And I would be lying if I said I had not lied in sobriety. And she caught me in a lie. And I was actually working at Maggie's at the time because I'll never forget it. I was like busted, caught red-handed. And I knew that I needed to come clean with her, and I knew that I needed to talk to her, and I knew that I needed to make an amends. But I was hoping my sponsor would maybe say the lovely line that we all want to hear, which is, no, it would cause more harm than good. But she did not. And my sponsor said, oh, you get honest with her. You tell her the truth. You right the wrong. And so I did. And it's harder to make amends after you've had some time sober.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what does page 24 says? I mean, give me a week to a month and my mind's back and I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? And so you're 2, 3 years, 4 years sober and your ego dies hard, man, you know, and you want, just like it talks about in the book, you know, the actor, I want to portray this stage character, you know, but in my heart, I knew I really didn't deserve it in that moment with my sister. And so that's where I feel like, and the book talks about this too, there was a turning point, right? I can either get closer to God in this situation, or my experience shows I can get closer to the next drink. And how do I get closer to God in this moment is I make an amends with my sister. And I mean, I was shaking. I was in the driveway. I was sweating. I was so nervous. I remember I couldn't even work or function or get one email out until I made this amends, because deep down to my core, I know through experience what will happen. I will drink over that stuff. You referenced Mike earlier, and I will tell you one of the best things that he's ever told me, carrying the message with him over the years, is it's not the elephant that ruins the picnic, it's the ants. And it's the little things, you know. That's what we think, you know, a relapse is going to be some big, obvious crisis. And no, it's one lie that builds on another that I continue to get away with that becomes sneaky, you know, and whatever. The other amends I can think of that I made to my brother and his wife recently, I think I just flat out lost my cool is what happened at family dinner. And I remember I went over there that next Monday face to face, directions out of the book. I had already talked to my sponsor, already prayed, all that good stuff. And the feedback they gave me was, thank you so much for not coming up with an excuse for why you acted the way you did. Thank you for just owning it, like, to a factual basis, if that makes sense. And so, again, I credit that to the big book, because you think I made that up to just go factually over there and non-emotionally and say, look, guys, I messed up, you know, and I was selfish and I was dishonest and I lost my cool and I said things I didn't mean. And, you know, I've got no excuse.
Right. I mean, and that is so inspiring to me, though, right, is whenever I see women like you with years of sobriety who are doing the exact same thing that they had to do in the beginning of their sobriety. Because it is so, this is just my experience, it is so much harder for me to humble myself and go apologize and say I was wrong or admit that I lied than it was in the beginning.
Oh, it's awful.
But seeing women like you, I need to hear that, right? Because it inspires me to want to keep doing this work. And if Lauren can go do that, you know, I can go do that.
Today I was at the grocery store at the self-checkout. I was in a huge hurry and I was trying to do Apple Pay and it didn't work or something like that. And I think I got 3 things, but it was $40. And nobody was around, nobody was helping me. And I walked out of the grocery store and I had this, I call it a God wink. I was like, I didn't pay for that. And my first thought was, well, $40 free stuff today. And literally it was supplanted with, no, but I got to do the Maggie's podcast today. And I'm a recovered alcoholic and I can't transmit what I don't have. And I just got off the phone with a protege and now she's sponsoring someone. And do I want to drink and die, or do I want to live and be free? And I know that sounds like a really exhaustive thought, but it was actually a really great thought.
Oh, it's so great.
And I went back in there and I patiently waited for someone to help me. And sure enough, the charge had not gone through. So I had maybe accidentally stolen that stuff for 0.5 seconds. And so, that's what people think that sobriety, recovery, all of that is centered around decisions you made when you were drinking. And that hasn't been my experience. It's sober experiences is who am I when no one else is looking.
So
you know what I mean? Like nobody was going to know. Nobody was paying attention to me at that grocery store this morning.
Yeah. And that's what recovery looks like. Again, it goes back to that thing in Hollywood, right? Like people think that it's like sitting in dark rooms and meetings and complaining and struggling and crying and just supporting one another, and hopefully we don't drink, and like I have to go to this meeting, I need to go to this meeting or I'm going to drink. But no, like recovery looks like what you just described.
Yeah. And I don't even know if I realized that until this very moment. But again, that's not a Lauren tool of Lauren being a good person. I'm just going to be honest. That's a spiritual tool that I learned from the 12 steps and from the big book and through my peers in recovery.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's beautiful. I mean, I feel like we've talked about I've loved this podcast because it feels like I've just been able to sit here and talk to you about like recovery, and it's been so fun. But before, since we are getting to the top of the hour and stuff, is there anything that like we haven't talked about that you want to make sure we do talk about?
Well, there was a question that you said.
Yes. Okay. So you were talking about the hard drinker and then the moderate drinker and the real alcoholic. And there's going to be somebody listening who has no idea what that means. So can you explain what the difference is between the three?
Yes, absolutely. I'm trying to find it in the book. Oh, I found it. Page 20. So, well, first things first, remember, this is a self-diagnosed disease. And the desire chip says, to thine own self be true. And the reason I say that is because if you're like me, you're sitting in the rooms or you're sitting in treatment or detox at the hospital or, your attorney's office, and you're comparing yourself to others. So first of all, it's not about others. And it's not about the way other people drink or your family members drink or your boyfriend or whatever. It's how do I drink? The moderate drinker, they say they can take it or leave it alone. That's the direct quote from page 20. A moderate drinker, is somebody that may or may not drink at a happy hour after work. They might like the taste of Coke better. That would be my boyfriend. He loves a Coca-Cola. Like he loves a bubbly Coca-Cola. He might like that better with chips and salsa than a margarita. Weird. And I'm like, you are strange. A moderate drinker, could give it up really easily. That's the other direct quote from page 20. And then basically, I've said this until I started dating Ryan. I don't know any moderate drinkers. Maybe like your grandma. I don't know. But then they have the type of hard drinker. And the hard drinker looks very similar to an alcoholic in a bar or a restaurant or in a typical social setting. They might have consequences because of drinking. Their health might decline. They might have concerned parents or, concerned husband or wife or whatever, but they can stop or moderate. And that's from page 21. And what I mean by stop or moderate is when I was struggling and drinking way too much and we were realizing it was time to get sober. When I say we, I mean my parents and I. My dad looked at me and he said this, Lauren, let's stop drinking for 30 days together. My dad is a hard drinker. He loves a martini. He might be having one now. Is it 5 yet? He loves a good glass of red wine. And he will be having one most nights. Those 30 days he stopped. Those 30 days that we had agreed upon that together we were going to stay sober and not drink, I don't think I lasted 3 days. I am the real alcoholic. And so to go on with what the difference between the two is that For a real alcoholic, an external situation or an external factor is not going to be enough to get me to stop or moderate. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
A very valid reason, like a breathalyzer on your car, or, the threat of job loss, or a concerned parent, would make a hard drinker, would be enough for them.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be able to cut back, call their numbers, quit for a year, or whatever. But the real alcoholic, at least my experience is that the second I make that resolution or that promise to my dad, I want to drink more than I ever have. Mm-hmm. And only alcoholics understand that. I'm sure there's like a parent would be going, what? That doesn't even make sense. That's so weird. And my mom would think, what? But I swear the second I made that resolution and that promise, and I genuinely meant it,
mm-hmm.
I just all of a sudden wanted to drink more than I ever have.
Mm-hmm.
So I would also just go on to say that a real alcoholic has a disease, has an illness, and can relate to the body and the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say this, a hard drinker's problem is alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
A real alcoholic's problem isn't alcohol. And this is a perfect thing to say. I blow the ladies' minds every week when I say this at Maggie's, that alcohol is not your problem. They look at me like I have 15 heads, So, they're 24 hours in Maggie's or whatever. And I start most meetings by saying, I just want you all to know that alcohol is not your problem. And they're like, what?
I'm here because of alcohol.
Yeah, they're like, wait, it's coming out of my pores.
Yeah.
And I have some in my bag. I'm just kidding. They found some in my bag. But what I go on to say is that alcohol is my solution.
Mm-hmm.
So I drank to make a bad day tolerable and a good day better. And that in combination with the inability to control my liquor and an obsession to control my liquor, even though I know I can't, it's a death sentence for me.
That was great illustrations, by the way. It was brought up to me the other day, this idea. Katie brought it up to me, and I thought it was fantastic. But to interview a real alcoholic and a hard drinker side by side. And you said that your dad's a hard drinker?
Yeah.
Would it be fun to interview the two of you together?
Oh, my God. He would be honored.
Oh, okay. This is happening because I was like, that would be so cool. I love the idea, but I don't know who. It would have to be somebody who's educated about alcoholism. And so perfect. Okay.
Well, this is going to be the most exciting part of his life. He's
Oh.
going to love it. Well, also, he is AFib. And so, that's another good example. And he'll maybe tell y'all about it. To be continued.
Yes.
Here's the cliff. He is AFib, ... and you're not supposed to drink, ... Can he do it or not? I'm thinking that AFib sounds like the perfect reason to drink. And a hard drinker is probably concerned about their health.
Yeah. Well, when do you leave?
I leave on Monday.
Oh, wow.
But I'm planning a wedding, and I will be back on the 19th of February. I'm going to be back a lot.
Okay, well, let's plan it. Let me know whenever you'll be back, whenever your dad will be available, because we have another one of these, like another microphone and a headset.
Oh, that would be
and the
so
three of us
fun.
could just hang out and talk, and it'll be great. It'll be fun.
His favorite thing was getting makeup put on him for the other side video.
Well, he doesn't get makeup put on.
Speaking of Hollywood,
Yeah. If you guys want to see the other side video that Lauren's talking about, I will put the link in the show notes as well. Get
your tissues out.
Yeah, it is so good.
I've never not cried watching it.
So beautiful. If y'all have loved what you heard, please leave us a review. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I say this every time, but the reviews are so much more about so much more than the podcast and the review itself. But
wait, say that again.
The review.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us what to do, because I told you before this that I'm a huge Maggie's podcast fan.
Yes. So you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Oh, okay. And that's better than what?
What it does is it helps the algorithm or something for Apple and Spotify for our podcast to get more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? But exposure. Yeah, exposure. So then more people can hear it.
Which is the ultimate goal.
Which is the
that
ultimate
someone
goal
struggling
is so we
hears it.
can reach more people who are struggling. And we've had women who have found our services through this podcast. You know, one woman lived in Georgia and she heard this podcast and, you know, she got involved with our virtual Next Step program, you know, like, and so like that's the other cool thing too, is that not only can the podcast help, but we have these amazing free services that can help too. And so your review helps that.
Okay, good to know.
Yes. And so if you felt inspired by anything, if you know somebody who would benefit from this podcast, please share it as well. Upload it to your Instagram stories, tag the Magdalen House, and let us know what your favorite takeaways were. Lauren, I have 2 final questions for you.
Oh, good.
The first one is, what is your favorite line or part in the big book?
Well, that changes by the day.
Right.
My brick on the Maggie's wall is from We Agnostics, and it says, God doesn't make too hard terms for those who seek him, which, let me translate that for y'all. It basically, for me, means I'm not unique in the problem and I'm not unique in the solution. It goes on to say that this is all-inclusive and available to all. I thought you had to be special or drinking, you know, a special type of coffee or have a special type of God to get sober and to be recovered. When I saw these smiling, happy ladies, I just thought that's way out of reach. And so, and that's not the case. If I can do it, you can too. But I also have this other favorite quote that I had. I actually took a screenshot of it. And it's about Henry Ford. And it's in the Family Afterword. And I read it every time I get my chip. So every year. It says, Henry Ford once made a wise remark to the effect that experience is the thing of supreme value in life. This is true only if one is willing to turn the past into good account. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. The alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family and frequently is almost the only one. I got a call from a sponsee of mine today, and she said, and maybe did I already say this? I got someone through 1, 2, and 3. And we were talking about this paragraph from the book because I was like, isn't it so cool when you can use your alcoholism as an asset?
Yes. Beautiful. I love it. All right. Final question. What would you want to say to the alcoholic who is listening and who is still suffering?
It sounds so cliche, but like, you're totally not alone. You're not an alien. You're not a freak. You can change. People can change. That's one of the best things that I've learned through recovery. I used to, hear, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Oh, yes, you can. If you're willing and able, and there's a big enough reason for it. The desire's got to come from within. And then I would say for the relapser, and I'm stealing some stuff from Daphne's podcast because it may or may not have helped me when I first got sober, is like, get back up on the pony, because I made this like drama show of all of my relapses, and that kept me in the problem and didn't get me into the solution, if that makes sense. Like, get into the solution, the 12 steps, as quickly as you possibly can. If you know you're the real deal and you're dying, get back up, as quick as you can.
Yeah.
And get a sponsor. That would be my other recommendation to someone who's struggling. Like, get a sponsor that you want what they have and you trust them, because they're going to put your hand in God's. And I don't mean you want their car or, whatever. I picked the woman whose laugh like pierced your ears and whose smile was so big that like it was a little bit obnoxious, and she just was overwhelmingly, joyfully happy. And I trusted her, and I still trust her, like, with my entire life. So find a sponsor that you really relate to their experience and to their drinking, and they can help, they can pull you out of the ditch,
Wonderful. This has been, again,
Yay, this was so fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad we did it Friday afternoon.
I know, because, I love that we got to talk before and, not rush through it. It was great. So I will also put the show note to Daphne's podcast in here and anything else we referenced, y'all. So make sure you check those out. Lauren, thank you.
Thank you. This was so fun.
All right, y'all. Have a wonderful day. See you later.
Thanks, everybody.
We hope you've enjoyed this From the Vault re-release of the Magdalen House podcast. Tune in every first and third Wednesday for a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services we offer, visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channels by searching for the Magdalen House.